What's up, everybody? It is I, Tevin El Chapo, friends call me Chop, and we are back with another episode of Chop Logic, the show where I, Chop, get to the logic of things in our creative field that we are in. So thank you so much for being here today. Thank you so much for joining us for another episode. First things first, have you subscribed to the channel yet? I gotta start here. All right, we giving out cash prizes to our subscribers. What's holding you back? Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Make sure you comment below. We're going to be giving out some more prizes as well. And also don't forget to like this video if you're watching on YouTube. And shout out to all my listeners across all platforms as well. So today on Chop Logic, we definitely got to talk about best and worst purchases. Now, purchases can be something as major as a new camera. Could be something as minor as a battery. But anything in between, we want to do best and worst purchases. All right. So me personally, I can't speak for anybody else when it comes to these types of things. But what I can say for a fact is that I, Tevin El Chapo, friends call me Chop, had bought a lot of stuff in his day. All right. A lot of purchases, a lot of things that I didn't need at the time, a lot of things that I had to grow the need because I bought it. You know how that goes. And then some things that were great purchases, so let's just go ahead and dive right into it. So first things first, the best purchase you can ever make will be your first primary camera, right? So when it comes to your primary camera, I would say, for one, I never tell anyone to buy a starter camera. If you can, buy a camera that you can grow into, that you can afford, something that has longevity to it, something that you can use for years on end. Because when you're buying a starter camera, usually people want to buy the cheapest thing they can get their hands on. The problem with that is, for one, it never ends. All right. Buying equipment is a never ending process as technology continues to grow, especially. So when you're buying something that is super cheap, 9 times out of 10, you're buying something that's going to be obsolete immediately, if it's not already obsolete. So once you get to that point and you start getting deeper into your photography, videography journey, you start comparing yourself to others. We're all victims to these things, and we start seeing other cameras and new technology and just being so much more concerned with the new hotness in a lot of places. And I was one of those people. And, I had to learn to grow out of that, but it's definitely something that you want to make sure you're keeping in mind, especially when it comes to that very first camera purchase. So I would say, for one, if you can, make your first purchase one of the last purchases. All right. You make that first purchase knowing every spec of the camera that you're buying. Make that purchase knowing every single thing that you can know about what you're going to do with that camera, even if you don't fully know what it is. Like maybe you want to buy it for photography, but you may want to do a little video. Well, then make sure you buy a camera that's good at both. Or it could be vice versa. You do video, but you want to do a little photography on the side too. Make sure you get a camera that does both. And make sure that you are aware of what the specs are for that camera. Make sure that you're pricing it accordingly to your budget, but also make sure that you're buying a good enough camera that you can continue to use for at least the next 5 years. I've only used cameras that I can only use for 5 years. 5 years of the future. So I don't necessarily subscribe to the idea of buying a starter camera and spending $200 on a camera. Your cell phone should always be your starter camera. So, best purchase for me will be my primary cameras. I started off with a Nikon. This was back when Nikon wasn't nothing. Nikon has came up in the camera game. If you really know your camera information, then Nikon kind of is going up. It's going up fast too. So you might want to, if you ain't getting Nikon, you might want to get one. But yeah, I had a Nikon D3300. That was my very first camera ever. From there, I believe I got the Nikon 7300. It was another DSLR body. It was relatively new at the time of me buying it. But yeah, I worked that camera too for a while. Then I graduated to Canon. Only reason why I transitioned to Canon, I know this whole Canon versus Sony versus Nikon versus Lumix. Like everybody think that whatever they use is just so much better than everybody else. Personally, I don't subscribe to that. Find something that works for you, makes sense, and like I said, something that you can afford, but can still help you innovate in your creative process for the next 5 years. So for me, I bought Canon because my friends had Canons, which means that if I needed to borrow a lens, I didn't have to pay. If I needed extra batteries I needed to borrow, I didn't have to pay for that either. It just economically made sense for me to go with Canon because of those reasons. And at the time, their autofocusing was the best on the market. I think it is right now a toss-up between them and Sony as of right now. But back then, they were crushing it. So it was a lot of stuff like that, especially compared to Nikon, whose autofocusing was god awful. That was one of the reasons why I was done working with them. Like once I started migrating more away from photos into like primarily doing video, man, I needed the autofocus. Like I couldn't autofocus nothing on there. Like, and the manual focus was so loud on the lenses, it was just crazy. But nevertheless, transitioned to Canon. And then from there, just a lot of more purchasing from there, essentially. So, you know, I would even argue just making that migration, like it taking 3 cameras for me to get to Canon didn't really have to happen. I could have bought a camera first, a Canon camera first, but I was just trying to be a contrarian at the time against Canon. So that's just me being me. So it kind of made, you know, some of those purchases, even though it helped me along my way in the journey, I didn't necessarily have to buy those Nikons per se. And I don't have them anymore. So I sold the 7300 years ago. I let someone borrow the Nikon 3300 and I haven't seen it since. That was like, that had to have been like maybe 3-4 years ago. Yeah, it was too many years ago. But I'm also not looking for it either. So that's, it's not like I'm just looking for it. It served me well. And even like my Canon, my first Canon was the Canon 90D, which is still to this day, I will die on this hill. The Canon 90D is a very good camera. All right. To this day, you can do photos, videos, whatever you need to do. Excellent camera, in my opinion. I just recently let someone borrow that one. And that was mainly just to like, you know, help my brother out. So shout out to my brother. Definitely wanted to help him out. So, and I definitely want that back. So I might have let the Nikon go. I'm gonna need my 90D back. I need my Canon back. He know who he is. So yeah, it's stuff like that. Worst purchase, impulsive gear acquisition. I am an impulse buyer to a degree. Now, when it comes to impulse buying, I usually make all my purchases super late at night. So any super expensive thing that I've ever bought, I usually bought sometime between 9 p.m. and 6 a.m. for no reason at all. Why? I don't know. I don't feel comfortable spending large amounts of money in the daytime, I guess. I don't know, maybe. But point being, every major purchase I ever made was around those times. And I vividly remember, and I will say this had to have been the worst purchase at the time, was me buying my first gimbal. Now, back in my day, gimbal technology wasn't what it is today. And back in my day, and I'm saying it like it was that long ago, but this was like, I had to bought that like maybe 2018. I want to say it was around the time I bought the gimbal, 2018, maybe 2019, whatever. Yeah, just gimbals weren't as accessible price-wise as they are now. So you can get a gimbal for a relatively easy price. I bought my gimbal, it was the Moza Air. It was a gimbal, but it also came with like the double-handed part, so you can kind of hold it either way, like hold it straight, or you can hold it with the 2 hands and stuff like that, which was cool. But I didn't hardly ever use the 2-handed part. It came with like a little remote where you can move the gimbal if you were holding it 2-handed. Again, hardly ever used any of that stuff. But that was one of those purchases I vividly remember. I bought it 5 o'clock in the morning. after maybe a few days of just like contemplating how bad I needed a gimbal, I bought it to shoot music videos, which ironically enough, I was doing it for a specific client that I had shooting music videos. And right around the time I bought it was right around the same time that my relationship with that client had deteriorated. So now I have a gimbal, but no client to shoot with. And it just kind of became like one of those situations. So I spent $600 on that gimbal. Yeah, $600, which is still feels like a lot of money for a gimbal to this day. I'm not truly. I bought a gimbal maybe a couple years ago. I bought a DJI gimbal, but I don't recall it being as expensive as that Moza Air gimbal, which again at the time it wasn't but so many options that you can afford really. So it was one of those purchases that when I bought it, I didn't necessarily think that it was going to be as unuseful as it was. I thought I would use it way more than I thought. Like I said, I bought it to shoot a client, and then after I bought it, immediately didn't have the client no more. So it was kind of like, damn. So I had to kind of like force myself into using it a lot of different ways, a lot of different places. Nobody told me anything about how to like calibrate gimbals, the weight of the gimbals, or the weight of the lenses that you use and stuff like that. All this stuff I had to pretty much like YouTube University and pretty much find my way. And it just made the process way harder. And to this day, I still own the gimbal, but it is like, it does not work for nothing. Like I just can't get it to stay still long enough to put a camera on it. Like it just literally jitters as soon as it cuts on. So I don't know why I still keep it. I guess just to, maybe I could sell it for parts. I don't know if anybody cares to have parts to that. If you do need parts to a Moza Air gimbal, by all means hit me up because it's just sitting collecting dust. But yeah, that was definitely one of those purchases that I was like, why did I really buy that? You know, it was just like, I didn't need it. I still don't need it. And just like, I was just following trends because I was seeing people at the time having gimbals. I was seeing the type of shots that they were getting. And I just felt like, man, I need to have my shots look just like this. I need to have this steady camera doing everything. Oh, I want to do 360s. I want to do this, that, and the third. I want to go crazy. And, you know, again, over the time, I did inevitably do all those things, but not in the time frame that I thought I would when I first initially bought it. So again, it's just one of those situations where, yeah, it started off as not a good purchase, but because I had made the purchase, I had to make it a good purchase, which is sometimes something that you got to do, especially when you're spending more money than you want to on something. So, you know, that definitely helped. Best purchases, I would definitely say in that category would be lenses, specifically versatile lenses, things that you can use for a variety of situations. So obviously I will always be a fan of the nifty 50 millimeter 1.8. You can get that for any camera body ever made pretty much. But that is like a go-to for, you know, anything. You're doing portraits, you shooting in low light situations, shooting photos, videos, like it's pretty versatile across the board. Also, I would say a 24-70 2.8 lens, that's also super versatile. Depending on who you get it from, it's probably gonna be heavy as all hell, but it's still pretty versatile in terms of the things that you can do. All the exact same things. You can shoot portraits with it. I done shot my 24-70. I done use it so many ways and so many different plays that I done shot everything with that. So it's definitely just one of those things, super good in low light. Depending on if it matches your camera, you may have like stabilization built into the lenses as well. A lot of lenses come with built-in stabilization that helps if you are hand holding. So those are definitely like two really good lenses that you can get. Anything other than that really is situational, you know. So if you do a 70-200, what's the situation? Are you shooting weddings? Are you shooting sporting events? Maybe then maybe something like that would be a lot more useful for you. If you're shooting like, I feel like once we get to like 35 millimeters versus a 50 is like a toss up. Like how are we feeling that day? Obviously, if you go on YouTube, you'll see a bunch of videos showing you about, like, oh, this focal length looks different and this one looks different. But I'm like, realistically, like when you're buying lenses, are you going to buy a 35 and a 50? No, you're going to buy one or the other. You feel what I'm saying? So it's just kind of like, it's just kind of more of a toss up, which is why even getting a 24 to 70 is such a versatile, because of just how many focal lengths you hit just off of one lens. You kind of do get a little bit of a sacrifice for not having, the aperture get as low as 1.8, like with a 50 1.8. But again, camera technology is so good nowadays. It's hardly ever an issue that 2.8 versus 1.8 is that much of a difference. So I would definitely say just having maybe two good versatile lenses, depending on what you're doing. Now, obviously, if you up your production levels and just the types of things that you're shooting, and you may need more camera bodies, or you may need more camera lenses, or, just different types of things like that, then you have to kind of adjust accordingly. But I would say definitely just things of that nature. So then the next thing would be, for worst purchases, I would say unnecessary accessories. So what is an unnecessary accessory? Depends on the person, right? I would say unnecessary accessories that I particularly didn't need is honestly my whole photography setup at this point. I don't really do photography as much. Yeah, my executive producer is gasping in the back. But yeah, I definitely don't do photography as much. And I pretty much set it up to have like a home studio. So I bought pretty much like the cheapest photography things, like a photography backdrop. Like, when you go on Amazon, you can get like the cloth backdrop and all that. I ain't using none of that, man. I ain't using none of that for nothing, yo. So it's just kind of like, now having it is just kind of like, it's existing, And I think that in terms of good purchases, I will say, I went with a wireless strobe. So if you do photography, get you a good wireless strobe. You can take it outside, inside, wherever you need to be. I got mine from Newer. So shout out to Newer. Get a good softbox with it. It's very versatile. So I'll say that was a good purchase. But when it comes to like backdrops, when it comes to like stands and all that stuff, like trying to make a mock studio in the house, like it just wasn't working. And then, the way I live, my ceilings ain't super high and I'm a tall dude. So it's just kind of like having to make the setup work was just not conducive for the long term. So I would say it wasn't one of the best purchases. It did end up being one of the purchases that, again, once you get it, you kind of got to make it work. So I will say this, no matter what the purchase was, good, bad, anywhere in between, I have been lucky enough to recoup everything I spent on it. Now, granted, it didn't happen overnight. So I'm not saying that if you buy something that you didn't like, you're going to make your money off instantly. But if you make the purchase and you commit to the purchase, then commit to making some of your money back. You know what I mean? If not all of it back. So, it's a lot of stuff like that. So also going into my best purchase, speaking of a strobe, just lighting equipment in general. You definitely want to invest in some lights. So if you invest in a camera body, you invest in a lens, the next best thing you should invest in should be lights, for one, good tripod, for two, get you a good microphone, for three, get you good memory cards and batteries. That's my top 5 right there. So you want to make sure that all those things are of the highest quality. So I would say worst purchases was all the cheap versions of all those things, right? You get some cheap lights and they go out on you mid-shoot. That's it. You ain't got no lights no more, and then you got to buy some more lights, right? You get a cheap memory card and they go out on you after you done shot a wedding or you done shot a conference or you done shot anything. Shot a podcast on a faulty memory card. And then you ain't got it no more. And you got to explain to your client what happened. All I got to say is make sure you do it over the phone. You don't want to be there in person. Same with batteries. You don't want to be shooting with a bad battery. And that's one thing mainly. I can't speak for other like camera companies, but when it comes to Canon specifically, you definitely got to make sure that you're getting good batteries, because them third party batteries be very mid, highly mid, insanely mid. So I would say just be very mindful of where you get third party batteries from. Um, Again, I only go from like so many people, and I make sure, especially for my cameras, that I have the highest quality that I can get. I try to buy multiple of them just to be safe as well. But yeah, you definitely want to make sure that you don't skimp out on that. And same with microphones. Like, you want to record with the best audio quality, you want to make sure that you get in some good microphones. So that could be a lapel mic, that could be like a podcast mic like I have here. It could be a shotgun mic that you put on your camera. It could be a boom mic that you connect to a recorder maybe. Just again, depending on whatever it is that you're doing, if you need good audio, you're going to need a good microphone. All right. Even when it comes to lights too, you can have like a light that you can put on your camera, your DSLR body I'm speaking of specifically. I know some people who do that. I personally don't like the look of that. So if I don't have to do it, I try not to do it. But it's nothing really wrong with doing that as well. So that pretty much is a lot of the best and worst purchases. I would say also just try and be mindful when it comes to making purchases, that you try to be practical as possible. Right. So that's pretty much been a lot of what I'm saying, when it comes to like reliable lenses, reliable batteries, memory cards, is you want to be practical. You don't want to necessarily buy things because they're trendy, which in our day and age, there's so much trendy technology, trendy gear to get. You don't want to get caught up into that trap, for one. You also don't want to buy things that aren't compatible to all the other stuff that you buy. So like if you bought a Canon camera and you buying Sony lenses, and now you're trying to make it work with an adapter and all that, you're just creating points of failure at that point. Like if you buy the Sony camera, buy the Sony lens. If you buy the Canon camera, buy the Canon lenses, or even if you buy a third party lens from, I don't buy third party lenses to know where to get a third party lens. But if you get a third party lens, make sure it fits your camera. Make sure that you test it out. Make sure you do your research on it, all that good stuff. That's exactly why I just make it easy for me by just buying all my stuff from whoever made my camera body. Same thing with batteries as well. Just make your life easy. Just buy them straight from Sony or Canon or whoever, So you want to make sure you're very practical. And one thing I will say too, don't skip out on the tripod. Don't skimp out on the tripod. Because I was one of those guys. Everybody who starts out is always one of those people, right? Who'll be like, I don't even need a tripod. When would I ever use this tripod? Really? When am I ever going to use this? My boy, all the time. All the time. There's every time you think you can hold it, you can put it on a tripod just as easily. All right. So when we buy tripods, we be like, all right, I'm just get whatever. It'll work. Not really. Because if you get something and it breaks and your camera falls, then what? I done got so many of those little travel tripods you can fit in like a book bag. All them shits was flimsy. And I said I wasn't going to cuss on this podcast, but all them joints was flimsy. All right. Every single one of them. I never had a non-flimsy one yet. You feel me? You got to buy the real sturdy ones. You know what I mean? So make sure you put in the quality. Even I had one, and I think this will be my last purchase that I'll bring up. One purchase that I did not think it was going to be good, ended up being amazing. I bought a monopod. So I bought a monopod. I can't remember what it was called. I think it's from Mofoto or some company like that. But it's like a monopod, but it came in like sections. So it came with like its own like stand, like the little 3 tripod-esque stand. You can put the monopod on top of it. And then it's like the base is clicked. So the bottom of it clicked into the monopod part. And then the part where you connect your camera also clicked into the top. So if you wanted to take the monopod out of it and use the bottom part as like a table tripod, you could do that. You feel what I'm saying? And I spent like $100 on it. And I was like, at the time, sick as hell. Because I'm like, $100 for a monopod? I was like, ain't no way. There's no way. This better be the best monopod I ever had. And it was. It still is. It's still in my car to this day. I just keep it on me. You can use it as a weapon if you need to. It's real. It's like carbon fiber. It's like, yeah, you swing it, somebody gonna bleed. Somebody gonna bleed if you swing. But But yeah, that's definitely was a good purchase. So if you're one of those people who don't want to buy a tripod or spend too much money on an expensive tripod, I get it. Again, I was there. But at the very least, get you a good monopod, and just make sure that you stay mindful of that too, because monopods are mono for a reason. So they do tip over. Don't be putting that heavy lens on there. So yeah, that's pretty much all the purchases. Again, I've had so many other purchases aside from that, but for the most part, they've all been, relatively good to me. So, shout out to everything that I bought and sold and everything that I bought and made work. And on your journey, you'll be doing a lot of the same things, but just try to keep it in moderation as much as possible. Be very considerate. Do not impulse buy when it comes to these very expensive items of equipment. You can impulse buy some food. Impulse buy a t-shirt. Don't impulse buy a camera, or be like me, impulse buying gimbals. And I think we'll leave it up to the sponsor from there. This video is sponsored by Chop House Media Group. Now listen, podcasting is hard, all right? There's a lot of moving parts to a successful podcast, whether it be the shooting side, the post-production side, the audio mixing and mastering. Just having the right strategy and know how to even get this podcast in the right places and getting it into the right positions to get monetized. And that is where Chop House Media Group helps out at. We have coined the phrase, the podcast in the box, where we pretty much facilitate anything and everything that you need to run a successful podcast, between the production, the post-production, the strategy and tips and tricks that you need to be 1,000% successful in every single aspect of your podcasting career. Now, if you are interested in being a part of this and making sure that you get your podcast to the next level, whether you are just now starting out your podcast or you are already in the podcasting field but want to take it to another level, be sure to hit the link below and schedule your free consultation with us to make sure that we get your podcast up and going further than you can ever imagine. All right, again, thank you to Chop House Media Group for sponsoring this video. And let's get back to the show. And we're back. All right, so this is the best part of the show where we get to do the trivia, get to see what I know. Now, if you don't know, this is how it pretty much goes. My executive producer, Javane, he's going to give me some questions. Now, the goal is for me to get a majority of the questions right. So if I get them majority right, I get to walk away into the sunset, happy-go-lucky. If I get a majority of them wrong, then I will have to give a cash prize to one of you, the audience members. First and foremost, if you want to win a prize, you got to make sure that you subscribe to the YouTube channel. That's the only way that you can get it. Second thing, you got to make sure that you comment below on this episode. That's also very important. So it's not enough to just subscribe. You also got to comment. You can comment anything. I don't particularly care what it is, but you got to make sure that you comment. Make sure that it's something respectful. So no disrespect, no shade, no negative comments will be appreciated either. We all peace and love around here. We a family. Come on now, we family. You part of the Chop family. If you part of the Chop family, we don't talk crazy to each other. You know what I mean? So, yeah. What we got today, Javane? What we got? Talk to me.
Now, I'm looking over these questions, and they seem kind of easy based on what you talked about. So, unfortunately, y'all might not be getting no money this week.
Good. I still love you, family. But,
But I only got 3 for you, 2 multiple choice, got true and false.
All right. Close the laptop. Let's get it.
All right, bet. All right, so starting off, I know you're not really a photographer, but you worked as a photographer. Right. All right, so which piece of equipment is often regretted by photographers as being unnecessary or overhyped? I'm about to give you your options.
Okay.
So we got A, extra large camera bags, B, wireless microphone sets, C, expensive filters that don't really improve your quality, or D, tripods with built-in lights.
They make tripods with built-in lights?
According to ChatGPT, they do. I ain't never seen it in my life.
I've never seen that day in my life.
But they must have just made that up.
Why would you want a built-in light in your tripod? How does you even get the camera on there to do that? Where's the light?
You asking too many questions.
I'm asking the questions because I feel like that should be the answer, but I also feel like it's not the answer. 'Cause I feel
Good
like,
point. Good point.
you feel me? Like,
Good point.
if you bought a tripod that came with a light, like they attached to each other, that feels like an unnecessary purchase.
That don't feel like a purchase you should have made in the first place.
That feel like something you would never even looked for. Like you found it looking for something else. He was like, "Oh, that would make sense." And then,
And it didn't make sense.
it didn't make no real sense.
So is that your answer?
No. It's definitely not. I want to go with the filters because I hate filters so much. I never use filters ever. In all my years of doing photography, even I probably used like a one ND filter and just left it on the camera forever.
Yeah, that was me too. For a point in my life,
Like, what are we using all these other joints for? Like,
that was literally it.
and then you got to get them specific to like the size of the lens. So it's like if you shooting with different lenses, it's not a one size fit all filters. So you got to keep buying them joints.
Or buy the same lens sizes, which don't make sense because if they're different, they're just different.
It's all bad either way you want to spin it. I'm leaning towards that. I feel like ChatGPT is going to hit me with the dumb alley with some foolishness off the strength of that light tripod thing. But I'm going to go with filters final answer.
Okay. That's actually correct. Good job. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Now, if you can, anybody in the comments owns a
Tripod.
with a light on it, I would love to see it. Let me just.
So the next question is actually the true or false one. So investing in a drone has become one of the most valued purchases for modern videographers.
Allegedly.
So true or false?
Investing in a drone,
Yeah.
the most valued?
One of the most valued purchases.
One of is kind of like, again, that's a trick one. One of, because like what isn't one of at that point, right? Everything is one of.
But most valued. One of the most valued. True or false?
I want to say no because you can do so many. I don't own a drone. Like I bought a lot of things. I never bought a drone. And I've known people who bought drones impulsively. I don't know if they'll ever watch this, but shout out to them. But yeah, I don't see a world where that is one of the most, like compared to everything else I said, like a tripod, lights, quality lenses, so many things you can do. And then plus you need a drone license. Like a lot of people, all right, a little bit of game for you if you don't know. If you want to do any commercial work with a drone, you must be licensed to do it, all right? So anything you want to make money off of, you're not going to make no money if you ain't got no license because ain't nobody going to take you for real, all right?
And I think that's based on the size of the drone as well, or type of drone.
Also that as well, you feel me? So,
The little play ones, you can fly around the neighborhood, you got those, and then obviously the big boys you need.
yeah, but it's like, but you need to, if you try and make money off of it, if it's like a most valued purchase, you might want to go ahead and get certified too. I'm gonna say false.
False? That's the final answer?
Yes.
All right, cool. Man, ChatGPT said you're wrong. They said true.
With no explanation?
No explanation. They just said, I'm all-knowing and you're not, so yeah.
So AI just, all right, y'all, so for the record, AI just told me I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Even though I'm pretty sure I'm right. All right, I don't get, again, if you don't have a license, what are you gonna do with the drone really? And how is it the most valued thing? How many drone shots do you need in your project specifically that I done spent a decade never needing it? You feel me? And then on top of it, you can get, if you need a aerial shot of a city, you can get stock footage for that. They sell stock footage of aerial shots of every major city in the world. You can go on YouTube and get that. So I'm just like, how is that a major purchase? Especially if I never needed one. Me of all people, who done bought damn near a little bit of everything. All right, we 1-1 for no good reason. We 1-1 for no reason.
Hey, man. All right, so last question is, what's a common worst purchase mistake new photographers make when starting out?
Okay.
All right, so we got A, buying multiple lenses without understanding their use. B, skipping on proper lighting equipment. C, investing in a cheap camera body. Or D, purchasing all editing software upfront. So it's a common worst purchase mistake that photographers make. I can run through the answers one more time. All right, so at A, we got buying multiple lenses without understanding their use. B, skipping on proper lighting equipment. C, investing in a cheap camera body. Or D, purchasing all editing software upfront. Now remember, these questions are brought to you by ChatGPT.
And that don't know nothing about the trade for real.
Right.
Just based on the conversation that we had, I want to lean towards C, buying a cheap camera body. Like I said, I don't believe in buying cheap camera bodies that you're going to replace in like 2 months. But at the same time, ChatGPT already disappointed me with that last question. So, what would the AI overlords really say about these things versus how I feel?
Yeah, because y'all might not be on the same page.
Yeah, we're clearly not on the same page already. So we already disconnected. Wow. Yeah, I'm gonna go with the cheap camera body. Final answer.
Yeah, that's it. Final answer.
Yep.
All right. You are incorrect.
What's the answer?
The answer is, according to ChatGPT, is A, buying multiple lenses without understanding their use.
But they lenses. Like, how many uses do you get out of a lens?
Lens?
I mean, you got your macro lenses, your zooms.
Okay.
Why do you need a 70?
Okay, and then you got the cinema lenses that don't have autofocusing in them. And you got okay, but that like who's buying? All right, because I'm like, if you're buying lenses for one, why would you be buying a bunch of variety lenses anyway, and then not knowing how to use them? And how long does it take to learn a lens versus any other part of the camera or any part of the video photography process? I don't know. I don't know. I feel like that one should be a wash. But for the sake of, again, we family, I'm going to go ahead and prize y'all with something anyway. All right. But ChatGPT,
Take that up with the AI overlords.
the AI overlords is, they sound a little goofy. That's a little goofy right there. But nevertheless, like I said, if you want your chance to win the cash prize on today's episode, please make sure that you leave a comment under this episode. Comment your favorite moment, your favorite question, any part, anything positive. I would love to hear it in the comments, but you got to make sure also that you are subscribed to the YouTube channel. That is the only way that we will be able to get you the prize directly. Anyone who isn't subscribed and comments won't be able to get it. And anyone who subscribes and doesn't comment also won't be able to get it as well. See, we're trying to make sure that we keep the family engaged. We are family, like I said. And if we really a family, how hard is it to say something? You know what I mean? And subscribe. And like the video. And help me find a better AI that actually knows some of these questions were wrong. But yeah, the question was wrong, not me. But all right.
Allegedly.
Ain't no allegedly. But nevertheless, we're going to go ahead and get out of here. This was another episode of Chop Logic. I am your host, Tevin El Chapo. Friends call me Chop. And I'll see y'all next time. Peace.